All right, let's break it all down with the sage, the one and only Ira Kaufman, Joe Bucs fan. He's out there in the car at the Advent Health Training Center at One Buccaneer Place. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Just finished my podcast with Joe Bucs Fan, my friend, and no surprise to you, Jay Bird, all three of us picked the Bucs to win a shootout. I think in the end, Jay, the Buck offense will have its way with, to me, a mediocre Washington defense. They got a few players. LeVue is good.
Mm-hmm.
Lattimore's back. I don't think he's 100%. He does have a tendency to get in Evans' head. But I think this Evans thing was a distraction for the Bucs heading into Week 17. I believe Week 18. I believe there's some truth to that. That distraction is gone. I think Evans is going to have a nice game. Week 1, Bucky Irving was not a factor. McMillan, I think, did catch a touchdown, but nobody was talking about McMillan. He's come on strong. So I'll say one more thing, Jay. At this point, and I'm not talking about 3 years from now, I trust Mayfield more than I trust Daniels in a game of this significance. You know the numbers and the history of rookie quarterbacks in the playoffs in the last dozen years, and I think Daniels is going to add to that list by Sunday night.
Yeah, Ira, I've been saying all week long, I think this comes down to one play, and it doesn't necessarily have to be on the last drive of the game, but I think it's one play where Jayden Daniels tries to do a little bit too much, right? He tries to do a little bit too much in the passing game or running the football, and he comes away with a turnover in a key drive, maybe in the fourth quarter, and that's the difference. I mean, you don't know what the playoffs are going to be like until you're in there, and a guy like Baker Mayfield winning a game for the Cleveland Browns, winning a game last year for the Buccaneers, like, he knows, like, hey, this is not the time to play hero ball. If he plays hero ball, it's with his legs. He'll try to run for a first down, but he's not going to try to force feed any of those tight throws. I'm with you. I think the clear advantage goes to the Buccaneers at the quarterback position because of, I know it sounds maybe just pretty elementary, but the experience.
Jay, you mentioned something in passing. I've been talking about this for about 6 weeks. To me, it is the most shocking in a positive way as a Buck, for people that are Buck fans, about Mayfield. Jay, look, he's going against Daniels, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. I'm not putting him in that kind of category. But, and last week's a perfect example, this guy consistently makes big plays with his legs. Consistently. And I mean 2 or 3 first downs a game that are backbreakers for the opposing defense because it's 3rd and 8. Last week, 3rd and 14. And look, he's not quick, he's not fast, but the guy has great pocket presence. And those 2 or 3 key first downs that keep this offense on the field and lets Liam Coen be more creative because he's got more possessions. I think that's a factor. Is he going to outrun Daniels? Probably not. But he just had 68 yards, Jay. Nobody expected that Sunday.
Yeah, it's a great point because I almost think it's a benefit that he doesn't run all the time because you're not going to keep a spy on him, right? I mean, you're not going to worry about him in that aspect of it, but you're right. It's not always, and I said this about the college game last night. You can't look at the stats at the end of the game and think that it tells you the whole story because, yeah, you can look at him getting out rushed by another guy, but it's when he's making these big rushes and really they are backbreakers for the defense, as you alluded to. What do you think about Rashad White? I think he makes an impact on this game. Not more than Bucky Irving. Like, I don't think he's going to tote the rock more than him, but I mean, I think Rashad White, he's got something to prove. I'd be surprised if he didn't come away with a big first down run or if he's a guy that didn't punch one in for a touchdown.
Jay, my guy who was in the Buck locker room early, right after the game, didn't even come in for bowls, but would rather go in the locker room. And there's a lot to be said for that, Jay, because you get guys by yourself before they leave. So he said Rashad White was not a happy camper after the game. Now, they won the game and made the playoffs in the process, but he didn't touch the ball. He might have made a couple of nice blocks on pass pro, but he was not a factor from scrimmage. And Bowles specifically said, Jay, we got to get White some touches. How many is he going to get? He'll get 5 or 6 carries, and I expect Irving to get about 20. And I expect about 100 yards from Irving, including, Jay, and this is one of the great things about Irving. Every freaking game, he breaks off a 30-yard run. Every one. You don't know when it's coming. It could be to the left. It could be to the right. But it happens all the time. And we're not used to that around here, Jay.
Right.
We're not. Right. Even when the Bucs had a decent running game with Fournette, he wasn't known for breaking off those explosive runs. It's made all the difference in the Buck running game, Irving. I don't think they come close to having. He had 1,500 yards from scrimmage. Jay, that's a big number for a guy who wasn't getting a lot of touches early in the season.
Right.
I think he's the critical factor, and the Commanders don't have anybody in the backfield that can compare to number 7. Nobody.
To be fair, Rashad White, and I noticed this all year long because when Bucky started coming on, Rashad every single week, even when he had that big game earlier on this year at home, he's always went in the first guys in the out of the locker room, which is kind of weird because before the year he was very out there in the public. He was doing a lot of public appearances. He was hopping on a lot of podcasts, and then I don't see him in the locker room even after good games. So I don't think it's a surprise that he's not too happy because he was RB1 going into this year, and he didn't even get a legit touch in the game last week. I know you and I spoke about this last Sunday, and I've been very vociferous in my support for Todd Bowles this week. I know our buddy T. Kraz has been doing the same thing. I think it's hogwash. These people talking about Todd Bowles, get rid of him, keep Liam Coen. It's 2 different spots. It's 2 different positions. And when you're talking about a guy in Todd Bowles, there's no guarantee Liam Cohen's going to be a great head coach. Todd Bowles won the division again. And this defense, I think there's a lot of holes there, Ira. I mean, you got an aging Levante David. Where's the rest of the linebacking core? There's no outside pass rush, even though there's, I think, 6th in sacks. Like, there's only so much he can do. I think there's a lot of undue hate when it comes to Todd Bowles.
He has not won over Buck Nation, Jay, which is a little surprising because he's won one more game each year. 10 wins is nothing to sneeze about with all the injuries, especially on defense. You make the key point, Jay, and Buck fans aren't any different. It goes on in Dallas and Philadelphia and Las Vegas. They're fans, Jay. We try to be a little more detached. I'm not putting down Buck fans, but Jay, you made the point, and I think it's worth repeating. There's this sense that the Bucs are overflowing with defensive talent. Mm-hmm. They're overstocked with defensive talent. Now, let's get real. Winfield, when he was healthy, wasn't playing up to his standards.
Agreed.
Jordan Whitehead has been disappointing. Jay, is that on Bowles necessarily? I don't think so. He ends up with 45, 50 sacks every freaking year. I don't know how he does it because he doesn't have that one TJ Watt guy. He doesn't have Myles Garrett, and he doesn't have that double-digit guy, but he's got 5 guys with 6 sacks somehow every year. Now, having said it, Jay, the defense in Dallas first half, awful. Mm-hmm. The defense against the Saints first half, awful. It's too soft. It's too soft. Well, now with Winfield, and I think Dean's going to play also, Jay, I think Bowles needs to be more aggressive. I think he needs to trust some of his guys. And, Jay, I ask for a simple thing. Simple. Contest the pass. Have a guy in the vicinity to make a play on the ball. And too often this year, whether it's the early game in Atlanta, which was absolutely abominable with Cousins, the first half with Cooper Rush, the first half with Rattler. Jay, there's no Buck defender in the zip code. And it's very demoralizing to Buck Nation, the people in the stands, and then they tighten up in the second half. I want to see that from the very first snap. I want to see passes defended on Sunday night.
Yeah, and I wonder too, Ira, like we look at it as, all right, I would want to see this, right? But you look at that. They did not play well against the Saints in the first half. They gave up 16 points. But you also look at it too, Ira, that bend but don't break defense. Like they gave up 3 field goals. So even though it was almost death by 1,000 paper cuts, like they were keeping everything in front of them. So I get it, and I agree with you. But I also think there's another aspect of if you're going to play soft early in the game because you're going to try to keep everything in front and you're going to try to learn what the offense is trying to do to attack you, and then you're just going to give up a bunch of field goals, like you're not going to get beat like that. You're going to get beat if you're over aggressive early and you get beat over the top and you're giving up 21 points. Like they gave up 4 scoring drives in the first half, but they only give up 16 points. And then I look at the last 5 weeks. The last 5 weeks, they've given up 9 points total in the second half. So, for all the people out there, and I know you're not one of them that are looking at Todd Bowles like, what the hell is he doing? Like, I'd much rather them figure it out and play better in the second half than in the first half.
Jay, I think part of Bowles' strategy, part of it is, we're going to get them in the red zone. We're going to tighten up in the red zone, and they're going to settle for 3 instead of 7. Now, Jay, one other aspect of the defense in Dallas, first half defense, and against New Orleans, which I think is another big factor. They can't get off the field, Jay, so Coen can't do his thing on the field. Mm-hmm. And, they're getting like 20, 22 offensive snaps in the first 2 quarters. You can't get a rhythm like that, Jay. So I know what you're saying about the 3 points and the paper cuts, but get off the freaking field and let Coen do his thing, Jay. That's another factor.
You think the Bucs, they win this coin toss, they take the ball first?
I would. Yeah. I try to set the tone from the front. I think the Buck offensive line is going to have its way. Now, I know they got a couple of good defensive tackles. Heck, Jay, they scored 37 points in week 1, and Bucky Irving was, nondescript.
No Chris Godwin, though, this time. No Chris
Godwin. But here comes McMillan. Mm-hmm. Here he comes. There's a lot for Dan Quinn to think about from a defensive, standpoint. Not many teams have slowed the Bucs down, and I don't think Washington's built to do it Sunday night.
You think this spells the end for Chris Godwin because of how well Jalen McMillan has played?
That's a tough one, Lee. I'll say this. This is the one thing I think it might be in the Buck favor. His leverage has decreased on the free agent market because of his injury. They don't know when he's going to be 100%, if he's going to be 100%. I'll tell you this, Jay. Here's the irony of the whole thing and the tragedy, if you will. And I don't think this is a stretch. I think you'd be with me on this. When Godwin dislocated that ankle, he was the best receiver in the National Football League at that moment. Yes, he was. Mm-hmm. He had 50 catches in week 7. 50. And he was outplaying Mike Evans by a wide margin. Maybe Evans draws a little more attention than Godwin. But, Jay, when you're doing it 4, 5, 6 weeks in a row, defenses notice. And it wasn't like, Godwin was, just allowed to catch these passes. He was playing tremendous football. And he's a great community guy and a great representative, just like Evans is. I think it's hard to walk away from Godwin if the price is right, Jay, and it might be because of his injury. I got to bring him back and, have McMillan as my third guy. I don't want to lose Chris Godwin.
Do you think Todd Bowles, if they don't win this game, gets fired?
No, I do not. I do think that if he would have lost to the Saints and or the Panthers, it's a whole open discussion because I think the Glazers would have been stunned and it would have been hard to defend Bowles when he had everything in his own hands, in his own power. It's different when you need help. He didn't need help. And it looked like they were going to lose the Saints game. And I'll tell you what, depending on who was available at that point, I think Bowles could have been in trouble. Now, I think it's a bunch of nonsense. This bump up Coen. We got to keep Coen. Let's get rid of Bowles. Jay, that sounds good. How'd that work out with Dirk Cutter? How'd it work out? Cutter's a really good offensive coordinator. He hired a lousy staff on defense. It ended up costing him his job. And the same thing could happen to Coen.
How different was a guy like Dirk Cutter in your mind? Because we were in those press conferences. As an offensive coordinator, Dirk Cutter was like the greatest guy. It was like, let's go out for a drink with this guy. And then when he became the head coach, and our buddy Jonesy took the wrath, but I mean, Dirk was miserable, man. He hated. How do you fix this, Dirk? I don't know. And I was like, well, all right, you probably won't have a job on Monday then. Like, It's a different animal, Ira. We say, I just said it before you came on. They say it in basketball. The biggest change in basketball is moving 12 inches from one seat to the next. You may be a good play caller, but there's a lot more that goes into it if you're going to be a head coach.
That's a very subtle point, Jay, and a very important one, because I've seen it over the years. I've just seen it. Who I didn't see it with necessarily was Raheem Morris. He was almost the same guy when he was calling the defensive shots, and then when he replaced Gruden in 2009.
How'd that work out for him?
That's just Raheem. I mean, there's not many guys like him, Jay. There's not many guys like him. He's a walking quote box. Says what's on his mind, no filter. But for the most part, Jay, you're right. Cutter, a guy you want to have a drink with as a play caller, and then he goes to the podium as a head coach. And I don't know, I'll have to get back at you. I'll have to watch the film. I can't comment on that right now. I still like the guy. I think he's a very decent man, Dirk Cutter. I always have thought that.
Right.
But he had his shot, Jay. He had 3 years. The offense wasn't terrible, but the defense did him in. The same thing could happen to Coen. I think if Coen gets a chance to go somewhere, Jay, I think he's going to take it. Unless he just absolutely hates the quarterback situation or hates the owner or the GM. It's his dream, Jay, just like so many, and he's got to give it a shot. And one last thing, Jay, when you're a head coach and it doesn't work out because extenuating circumstances, maybe you hang around and there's a decent chance you get a second chance. You know who that doesn't work for, Jay? A general manager. I'll give you an example. You remember John Idzik? John Idzik used to be in Tampa, used to be one of McKay's, consiglieres, around, the Tim Ruskells and the Jerry Angelos way back when. Then he takes the Jets job. Jay, it's a disaster. Who the hell can win with Woody Johnson over there?
Right.
And he's never going to get another chance, Jay. He's never going to get another chance. John Robinson in Tennessee, I think that was a mistake to get rid of him. Right. I mean, the guy they just replaced, they just fired him. I thought Robinson did a decent job at Nashville. He's probably not going to get another chance. So head coaches get another chance. I think Coen will take a job if it's offered to him this year.
How was it going up to Amalie Arena? I told Phil Esposito told me you were there because Phil's always he's keep me in the loop. He says I looked up and I saw Ira Kaufman and Tom Jones and Roy Cummings, and the first word out of my mouth was "Who died?" And I go, Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
Man. How was it up there?
It was great. I mean, we go to one game a year. I organize it, and Brian Friesman's nice enough to give us a credential for one night because we don't have season credentials, nor do we deserve one, Jay. Nor do we deserve one. I'll be quick to say that.
It'd be a whole hell of a lot funnier if you guys did, though. I'll tell you.
Thanks, baby. But I picked that game because it was the one game that the Rangers come to town. It was a Saturday night at the end of December, and I wanted to see Sam Rosen and send him off in style. Jay, I started in 1976, UPI, New York. I was a sports clerk. And, Sam Rosen was running UPI audio. And they had 1,000 radio stations at that time that took UPI audio. And Sam, ran that thing. And so I got to know him. And we played on the UPI softball team in Central Park on Wednesday afternoons against the New York Times and the New York Post and the Daily News. And it was a lot of fun back then. And Jay, Sam ended up hiring some kid right out of college. I think it might have been Cornell. And that guy turned out to be Keith Olbermann. Keith Olbermann got his start with UPI audio under Sam Rosen. It was great to see him. What a career Sam's had. And he's going out on the top of his profession.
Ira, just saw this breaking news. It looks like Tristan Wirfs, first team All-Pro left tackle. I know Mike Evans is the greatest offensive player in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history, but are we on the way to seeing Tristan Wirfs being the number one offensive player? It's hard. It's hard to compare offensive linemen to wide receivers. I get that. But I mean, Ira, this guy has hit the ground running. My good buddy Ian Beckles, who really well, like you don't play that well as an offensive lineman as a rookie. And this guy just came. And as soon as he landed in Tampa, he has been one of the best players in the National Football League. First time being All-Pro, first team as the left tackle representative there. Ira probably won't be the last either, right, brother?
Jay, being one of the 50 voters on the Associated Press All-Pro team, which is the All-Pro team that everybody considers. A lot of different organizations have All-Pro teams, but it's the AP team that has the credence and the gravity. When you're presenting a guy for the Hall of Fame, you say, this guy's a 4-time All-Pro. You're talking about the Associated Press All-Pro team. Jay, I voted for Wirfs. He was on my ballot. I also voted for Levante David, second team, inside linebacker. Here's the thing about the All-Pro team, Jay. Once you're established on there, like a Trent Williams was established on there, and he was injury-riddled this year, so he wasn't a factor. Jay, once you're out there, there's a tendency that you're going to be out there again. Because a lot of players, some guy in Pittsburgh didn't see Tristan Wirfs much this year, but they go by reputation. In some cases, Pro Bowl, who made the Pro Bowl team. So I think Wirfs is going to be a 5 or 6 time All-Pro. And Jay, if I'm still doing this in 10 years, when Wirfs is calling it quits, then he's got to wait another 5 years to try to get a gold jacket. Jay, I'll be 100 years old. And you know what? I'll still be out there giving out those gold jackets. How do you like that?
And we'll still be hanging out before the Bucs games, talking shop with whoever walks by. Yeah, you're right.
I'll buy you a Cuban sandwich Sunday night, Jay. I'll buy you a Cuban sandwich.
I can't wait for it. They're free, so I appreciate the dipping into your pocket, you son of a gun. But you're right, though, and I think even more kind of to piggyback on what you just said, I think when you have positions like offensive line, it's even more of that. Because it's easy to look at wide receivers and be like, all right, well, this guy had 80 catches to 95, 1,500 yards. Like, people don't know the stats for an offensive lineman as much as some of these other skill positions. So if you just look at the Bucs, they're playing well, and the stats that you do see is like he gave up 1 sack all year long, and you're like, right, well, it's probably Tristan Wirfs again, even if you didn't see him play.
Some people, Jay, put a lot of credence in Pro Football Focus. I think isn't that Collinsworth's thing? Collinsworth was involved in that. They always mention it on the Sunday night broadcast. This guy ranked number 9, Pro Football Focus at his position. I'm not sure I totally buy into Pro Football Focus, but like you said, getting stats on offensive linemen like a guard, nobody knows how many sacks a guard gave up because they don't know what his responsibilities were on a particular play. Jay, so it's very difficult. And for Buck fans, Jay, that are wondering why wasn't Mike Evans an All-Pro? I mean, Jay, let's be realistic. I mean, Mike Evans is a hell of a player. He's going to have a gold jacket without question. But, he's not Jamar Chase this year. He's not. He's not Justin Jefferson. Now, part of it is he missed 3 games. That's not his fault. Is he the best receiver in football? No. But he's damn good, Jay, and I'm glad he's on the Bucs.
All right, Ira, what else? What else you got going on this week? What were you talking about with the doggy? What's going on? What do you talk about with Vince Russo?
The doggy put me on ice for 3 weeks because he didn't show up for 3 straight Wednesdays. So my opening line to him, Jay, yesterday, hey, we finally got Ira back. How you doing, Mr. Kaufman? And I was prepared, Jay. I was prepared. And I said, let me tell you something, Russo. And by the way, who calls him Russo? I do. Let me tell you something, Russo. The last time I talked to you, the Falcons had a 3-game lead in the NFC South. How do you like that? And he started laughing. And, we talked about, there's a book about the New York Post. Like once Murdoch bought the paper, it's an oral history of the New York Post. Of course, those are my days in growing up in Brooklyn with the New York Post. So, Russo's been screaming about that book. I bought it. I've been reading it. He's been screaming about the Bob Dylan movie. I went out and saw that. Then there's a movie with Nicole Kidman. It's very steamy, Jay.
Yeah,
it's right up your alley.
That steamy.
It's very steamy. So, we talk about popular culture. We do. He's very into the Birds, Roger McGuinn, Dylan. So now, Jay, I'm not making this up. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. He's not showing up next Wednesday because he's been invited to the London premiere of the Dylan movie.
Whoa.
The producers of the movie heard him talking about it, and they invited him. So he's taking his daughter. They're flying out next week, and I'm going to be left on ice again next Wednesday. I mean, where's the respect, Jay Bird? Where is it?
I don't know, but PFF has him ranked #1 Father of the Year now with that move, buddy. That's a big deal. And we don't know where you ranked in the PFF rankings, but you're always #1 to me, buddy. Ira Kaufman, Joe Bucs Fan. Go check him out, joebucsfan.com, the Ira Kaufman podcast. And if you're lucky enough to be in the press box before a game, there's a good chance Ira and I are sitting there talking about anything and everything. And, yeah, you never know who might be sitting at the table with
Hey,
us.
by the way, Jay, remember this guy, Greg DeCruz?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He wants to meet you and I before the game. I'm a little leery, but you know what? If he goes over by where the press entrance is before the game, I think I'll spend a couple of minutes with him.
All right, we'll do that together. We'll make sure we have the security because there's a bunch of cops over there too. So
there you go, baby.
Greg's a good guy from Costa Rica too, so we'll definitely. Hey, did you ever get a chance to talk to Brady the other day or what?
He blew me off, Jay. Blew me off.
Oh my God! I was just telling somebody the other day. I was like, oh, they were like, oh, how's Brady when you see him? I'm like, Brady walks by. See, a lot of people don't know this, Kaufman. You and I do. When he walks by for his like pregame thing downstairs, him and Burkhart walking arm in arm down. There's 3 or 4 security people around.
That's right.
You can't even sneeze in their vicinity. And you said, hey, Tom, can I grab you for something for Hall of Fame? He goes, all right, I'll go back down and then I'll come back up and I'll get you. And then 5 minutes later, I saw you standing by the booth over there and no dice, huh?
No dice. I guess they just put out the food. He couldn't wait to get a hot dog down his gullet over there.
Hey, I've seen Greg Olson. I've seen Recher. I've seen a lot of different guys give you the time of day, though, when you need to talk Hall of Fame. So keep trying, Kaufman. You might get it.
Oh, by the way, Jay, Tuesday is the Zoom call for the select the Hall of Fame class of 2025.
All right, Eli, is he getting in? What do you think?
If I have to bet, no. He's got to wait.
Really?
Yeah. Gotta wait, baby. Gotta wait. Wait.
Who do you think? Who's the slam dunk can? Who's
the slam dunk guy? Is Antonio Gates. He's the slam dunk.
He should have been in last year, Kaufman.
That's it. He should have been in last year, and he's the slam dunk.
Anybody else?
Well, the first year eligibles. I mean, they're interesting. Manning, Kuechly, Terrell Suggs, Vinatieri. What do you do with Vinatieri? You make him wait? What do you do with this guy? I mean, it's a tough one, but then there's a queue of guys that have been waiting 5 or 6 years, like Torrey Holt, Reggie Wayne. You got little Steve Smith in there this year. Darren Woodson's been waiting. Jared Allen's been waiting. It's gonna be a great meeting. And by the way, Jay, 1 hour, maybe more, will be spent on your boy Eli Manning. 1 hour.
Wow. Is my guy Bob Glauber going to be there?
Bob Glauber's making the presentation.
I thought it was Myers.
No, it's going to be Glauber.
Oh, all right.
But Myers will weigh in and after Glauber finishes. He will.
Well, you tell Bob I said hello. I remember, he used to skate with my uncle over at Rye Playland back in the day.
He does a great stage impression too, right?
He
does.
Is iconic. I mean, he's not as good as me, and it's not as good as T. Kras's D. Orlando Ledbetter impression. But hey, Jay Bird, this is what we do around here. The one and only Ira Kaufman. Ira, I appreciate you. I love you, brother. I'll see you Sunday. Are you going to be at the game Sunday night? Right? I know it's a late one.
Of course, I'm going to be at. And if I can get the cruise into the press box, I'll sneak them up there, Jay.
And you know what, Ira? I'll make sure that Brian Ford has a pillow and a cot for you to go to sleep after the game, my brother.
My pleasure. Enjoyed it, Jay.
All right, pal. Take care. Talk soon.